The role of Attorney General has always been more than just another cabinet position. It's supposed to be the highest guardian of justice, the person who ensures the law applies equally to everyone, powerful or powerless. But when Pam Bondi stepped into her confirmation hearing, it quickly became clear this wasn't going to be routine political theater. Senators weren't just interested in her resume, her past record, or her talking points. They wanted to know something much deeper. Could she be trusted to serve the American people, or would she bend under pressure from the Oval Office? The hearing began with a sharp tone. Senator Richard Blumenthal wasted no time cutting to the chase. Looking Bondi directly in the eye, he posed a question that could define her entire tenure before it even began.
We have some history here with your predecessors, Barr, Sessions, and others, who perhaps sincerely, when they sat where you are now, said that they would say no, but they were working with a president that expected them to be his Roy Cohn, his personal attorney. Do you really think that you can avoid the disgrace that they encountered or the repercussions from the White House if you say no to the president? And so my question to you is, can you say no to the President of the United States when he asks you to do something unethical or illegal?
Senator, first, I need to clarify something that you said, that I have to sit up here and say these things. No, I don't. I sit up here and speak the truth. I'm not going to sit up here and say anything that I need to say to get confirmed by this body. I don't have to say anything. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability and honestly.
Let me ask you, an individual who says that he is going to, quote, come after, end quote, people he alleges, quote, help Joe Biden rig the presidential elections, that he has a list of people who are part of this deep state who should be prosecuted, that he's going to close down the FBI building on his first day in office. Is that a person who appropriately should be the FBI director? Aren't those comments inappropriate? Shouldn't you disavow them and ask him to recant them?
Senator, I am not familiar with all those comments. I have not discussed those comments with Mr. Patel. What I do know is
I'm
Mr.
asking
Patel,
you for your view.
Excuse me. What I do know is Mr. Patel was a career prosecutor. He was a career public defender, defending people. And he also has great experience within the intelligence community. What I can sit here and tell you is Mr. Patel, if he works with running the FBI, if he is confirmed, and if I am confirmed, he will follow the law if I am the Attorney General of the United States of America, and I don't believe he would do anything otherwise.
Well, let me just submit that the response that I would have hoped to hear from you is that those comments are inappropriate and that you will ask him to disavow or recant them when he comes before this committee, because they are indeed chilling to fair enforcement and the rule of law. Let me ask you on another topic. When we met, I welcomed your support for the goals of the Kids Online Safety Act. And Senator Blackburn and I have spent a lot of time, devoted a lot of effort to the passage of the Kids Online Safety Act, which happened by an overwhelming vote of 91-3, 72 co-sponsors, including Vice President-elect Vance. I appreciated our discussion and your support for protecting kids online when we met last week. I'm hopeful that this area is one where we can work together. Can we count on your support in working together to protect kids online?
Senator, absolutely, and thank you for that legislation, and Senator Blackburn. I believe in this world right now, we have to find the things we have in common, and that is certainly one of them, Senator, protecting our children from online predators. You've done so much on that front, and I thank you. I attempted to do that as well when I was Attorney General, but I am committed to working with you on anything we can do to protect our children throughout this country. When I was Attorney General, we started something called From Instant Message to Instant Nightmare, and educating parents about online predators. And that also, Senator, is one of the core functions of the FBI, the cyber unit. They sit there, these agents sit there all day long and investigate child predators. We tell parents constantly, you think you're
Ms. Bondi,
talking to another
I
child,
apologize.
and you're
I'm
not.
going to interrupt you. I welcome
Sure.
your positive response. I have
Oh,
one
go ahead.
more question that I'm going to try to fit into
Sure.
this round. TikTok will be banned unless it is sold because it has become a tool for the Chinese to collect information and do surveillance and endanger our national security. Can you commit that you will enforce that law promptly and effectively? And I ask this question because President Trump's pick for your Solicitor General in the Department of Justice went to the United States Supreme Court arguing that the ban.
Can you, if confirmed, truly stand up and say no to the most powerful person in the country when they ask you to do something unethical or illegal? Can you prove, right now, that you're not just another loyal soldier, but the people's lawyer? It was a bold demand, and it hit hard. Bondi's response came quickly, and it sounded confident on the surface. She said, "I don't have to sit here and say anything just to get confirmed. I speak the truth." That might have sounded strong to some listeners, but there was a problem. She didn't actually commit to saying no. She didn't promise to reject falsehoods about the 2020 election. She didn't condemn the violent rioters from January 6th. She didn't draw a red line in the sand. Instead, she kept things vague, delivering the appearance of confidence while avoiding the heart of the question. And in a hearing like this, silence can speak louder than words. Blumenthal pushed further, reminding everyone of the history. Attorneys general have sat in that very same chair before, insisting they would uphold the law without fear or favor. Yet when the moment of truth arrived, they faltered. He invoked the names of past officials who began with promises of independence, only to be remembered as examples of how political pressure can warp even the most sacred role. The implication was clear. Will Pam Bondi follow that same path, or can she break the cycle? The room grew tense. Every time she sidestepped, it fed the perception that she was choosing her words carefully, more concerned with not angering her allies than reassuring the American people. Viewers at home could see the hesitation. They could feel the unease. This was more than a confirmation hearing. It was a test of character, and the results so far were inconclusive. Then came the most controversial figure in the discussion, Kash Patel, a name that had already sparked alarm for many. Patel, floated as a potential FBI director, had made comments that sounded like threats, saying he would come after people he accused of being part of a so-called deep state, promising prosecutions, and even suggesting he would shut down the FBI headquarters. Blumenthal asked a straightforward question: aren't those comments deeply inappropriate? Shouldn't you, as the nominee for Attorney General, condemn such rhetoric and demand accountability? This was Bondi's chance to show moral clarity. Instead, she sidestepped again. She said she wasn't familiar with all of Patel's remarks. She leaned on his past experience as a prosecutor and public defender, describing his resume rather than addressing the disturbing statements. It was a telling moment, because even if she hadn't studied every word Patel ever said, the question before her wasn't about technicalities, it was about principle. And principle requires clarity. By dodging, she once again raised doubts about whether she would ever challenge powerful allies when the stakes were highest. At this point, the contrast in her performance was becoming striking. When the questions were politically charged, election integrity, violent riots, extremist rhetoric, Bondi danced around them, keeping her answers vague and calculated. But then Blumenthal shifted gears, and everything changed as he asked about the Kids Online Safety Act, a bipartisan effort to protect children from digital predators. On this subject, Bondi came alive. She praised the legislation. She recounted her own work in Florida, where she had spearheaded initiatives to protect children in the digital age. She spoke about FBI cyber units working tirelessly to track online predators. She even shared the story of her program called From Instant Message to Instant Nightmare, aimed at educating parents about online dangers. Here, there was no hesitation, no defensiveness, no sidestepping. Her voice carried conviction. It was clear this was an issue she genuinely cared about. The difference was undeniable. On politically neutral, bipartisan topics, she could be passionate, clear, and determined. But when the questions touched raw political nerves, she reverted to cautious evasions. The contrast left senators and the public with a troubling question: which version of Pam Bondi would actually show up in office? The determined protector of children? Or the cautious loyalist who avoids confronting uncomfortable truths? The issue of TikTok added another layer to the puzzle. Blumenthal pressed her. If the app remains under Chinese ownership and Congress has mandated a ban unless it is sold, will you enforce that law on day one? It was a yes or no question. And once again, Bondi refused to give a direct answer. She cited pending litigation, insisting she couldn't discuss details. While that might sound like the safe legal approach, in the political arena, it sounded like yet another dodge. The public doesn't just want to hear about process. They want clarity about whether the Attorney General will take action when national security is on the line. So, what did we learn from this hearing? We learned that Pam Bondi is more than capable of handling the easy fights. When the issue is bipartisan, when the stakes aren't politically explosive, she shows real conviction and even passion. But when the spotlight turns to the toughest, most divisive issues of our time, election lies, violent extremism, and controversial allies, she becomes careful, calculated, and evasive. That may be smart politics, but is it good enough for the Attorney General of the United States? This duality is what makes the hearing so important, because the job isn't about delivering speeches on issues everyone agrees on. It's about standing up in the toughest moments, when the pressure is immense and the consequences are severe. The people don't need an Attorney General who shines when the cameras are friendly and the questions are safe. They need someone who won't flinch when the president, or any powerful figure, demands loyalty over law. That's the heart of the matter. Can she be the people's lawyer, or will she serve as someone else's lawyer in disguise? The answer, based on this hearing, is far from clear. And maybe that's the real problem. Because in times like these, when democracy itself feels fragile, clarity isn't just a bonus, it's a necessity. Yet, even with all the tension, Bondi managed to leave a mixed impression. Supporters might argue that her legal caution shows she respects process, that she won't make reckless commitments in front of cameras. They'll point to her passion for child protection as proof that she has the heart and the drive to make a difference. But critics will counter that evasiveness in the hearing room foreshadows evasiveness in the office. That if she can't speak clearly about condemning lies and extremism now, she won't be able to act decisively later. And that's why this hearing matters so much. Because the Attorney General isn't just another cabinet secretary. It's the guardian of the Constitution, the last line of defense against corruption, abuse, and tyranny. If the person in that role hesitates when the stakes are highest, then the entire nation could pay the price. For some senators, Bondi's testimony left more questions than answers. For citizens watching at home, the uncertainty may feel even sharper. Everyone wants to believe that the nation's top law enforcement officer will put the law above politics. But in Bondi's performance, many saw a lawyer who could fight the easy battles, but not necessarily the hardest ones. The confirmation process will continue, and senators will have more chances to press her on these issues. But for now, the image is set. Pam Bondi, the nominee with two faces. On one side, the prosecutor who fights predators and supports bipartisan protections. On the other, the careful politician who refuses to draw red lines when it comes to power. Which version will define her tenure? That remains the unanswered question. And so, as viewers, we're left with a challenge. What should we demand from our leaders, especially those entrusted with upholding justice? Should we accept cautious evasions, or should we insist on clarity, even when it's politically risky? Should we settle for passion on safe issues, or should we require courage on the hardest ones? Pam Bondi's hearing was more than just a political ritual. It was a window into her character, her instincts, and her priorities. And what we saw was both reassuring and troubling. Reassuring, because she clearly cares about protecting the vulnerable. Troubling, Because she seemed unwilling to stand firm on the issues that threatened democracy itself. That's the paradox. She may very well have the skills, the resume, and the experience to run the Department of Justice. But the question of courage, courage to say no, courage to confront power, courage to uphold the law without fear or favor, remains unresolved. And until it is resolved, doubts will linger. Now the decision rests not just with the Senate, but with all of us watching. Because the role of Attorney General isn't about speeches, evasions, or even resumes. It's about what happens in the darkest moments, when the pressure is unbearable and the stakes couldn't be higher. It's about who has the courage to be the people's lawyer, no matter the cost. Pam Bondi was given the chance to prove that courage in her hearing. Whether she succeeded is a question that may define her legacy before her tenure even begins. What do you think? Did Pam Bondi show herself to be the people's lawyer, or did she reveal a reluctance to take the hardest stance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our country, and stay tuned for the next breakdown. Because this story and the questions it raises are far from over.